Show that wasn't expected?
Well, it was only funny to me. It wasn't funny to Ladmo. But we had a rocket prepared to go off in the studio. We were making a little story about going to the moon. The rocket didn't go up. It went back and just slammed Ladmo into the floor. You know, and of course we're laughing, and he's crying. You know, that was not supposed to happen that way. It was rigged and roped to be pulled up this way.
Wow. Anything interesting happen at the live shows?
Live shows, yes. There again. Well, the first day we got Gerald up there, September of '63. All week long we said the general manager's nephew was coming to be on the show, whether Ladmo and I like it or not. And so Gerald got on there, and for the rest of that week, he was telling the kids that he was going to get rid of Ladmo and I. And he did the first weekend, he did his first stage show with us. And the kids ran to the stage, jumped on it. The stage collapsed from the weight of all the kids trying to get up there to get at Gerald. And they had just let the kids have watermelon, and they were all throwing the watermelon at Gerald. And this is his first deal, and so Ladmo and I rushed him into the pickup truck that we'd arrived in, locked the doors. The kids were rocking the pickup truck like this, and I just turned to Ladmo and I said, "You know, I think we're on to something. We've got a good villain here." He was a good villain.
Did you ever distribute the show outside of Arizona?
Yes, once in New York for about a year, and once in Los Angeles. I think that was almost a year. It's funny, the one in, you know, we're used to getting mail like from Flagstaff, Thompson, you know, but when we were on in New York, we were getting mail from Maine, New Hampshire, Connecticut, you know, all over the place. It was amazing. And then what was the other part of that?
Did you ever distribute the show outside of Arizona?
Oh, in Los Angeles. What happened is, you know where they slotted it? They put it on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon before the kids were home from school. I mean, you know, so that didn't last.
Do you still hang out with the people you worked with on the show?
The ones that are still around. Yeah, right. I see Pat every once in a while. Ladmo's gone. He's gone. Yeah, we miss him. But I see Pat, and I see a lot of the guys that were cameramen and people who've worked with us. I see our director, Sharon Kelly, a lot. Yeah, and Tony, Tony the cameraman. I still have a lot of friends down there, I hope.
Okay. Does your fan base still surprise you?
I'm amazed that anybody even remembers or cares, but it's nice to be remembered.
She told me this story once that she was at like a school carnival or something.
Yeah.
And you guys were gonna go on stage.
Yeah.
And she had to run a bag of money to her mom. And you guys were coming out of the dressing room just as she was coming along, and and she was just standing there, shocked. She couldn't say anything.
Was Gerald rude to her the whole time?
She said that Gerald just kind of like stared at her.
Right.
You're telling my story.
Ladmo patted her on her head and said, "Hey, how's it going?"
Right. Ladmo had good PR. Gerald didn't. He had terrible public relations. Terrible.
I think Pat was trying to stay in character. He was trying to get into character to go on stage, and I surprised you.
Right.
I think that's what it was.
He was never nice to anybody. That would have ruined his reputation.
How were the characters developed?
That was my job, with the exception of one. McMahon came ready-made with Aunt Maud, but my job as a producer-writer was to come up with the characters. And so, that just, it was my responsibility.
Yeah, she has Aunt Maud's storybook.
Oh, yeah.
Aunt Maud was my favorite.
Yeah.
She was my favorite character of Pat's characters. Was Aunt Maud.
Right. I got to write those, being the writer. Yeah, I wrote those.
My kids will know what I'll be like when I'm in my 80s. I'll be
Right.
chasing police officers and.
How did you like the endings? And Billy and Bobby were never heard from again.
I love them. I love them.
Lost in the haunted house.
And I got it, even at like 8 years old. I understood that it was a joke.
They all had terrible endings.
Yeah.
If you could do the show over again, would you change anything?
No. What's so much of it? No, I liked it the way we did it the first time.
Okay. Kenny and Kathy go to the country. Once upon a time, Kenny and Kathy went to the country to visit their grandparents. What a nice vacation! The sun was shining. Kenny and Kathy picked berries and Grandma baked a pie. Grandma took them to the barn and then the chicken coop. He said, "You can play anywhere you want. The fields, the orchards, the streams, anywhere but the haunted house." What haunted house? Kenny and Kathy wanted to know. "The one at the end of the lane," answered Grandpa. "Don't go near there because of the ghosts." "We're not afraid of ghosts," they replied. Late that night, Kenny and Kathy slipped out of their grandparents' cottage and went down the lane to the haunted house. It was old and dark and boarded up. "Isn't this exciting?" whispered Kenny. "Let's go inside," said Kathy. They pried open a side door and went inside. It was very dark. The floor creaked. All of a sudden, there was a rush of wind and an eerie shriek. Kenny and Kathy started screaming. It was pitch black and they couldn't find their way out. All the neighbors for miles around heard them shouting and yelling for help, but it was too late. There was nothing anyone could do. Kenny and Kathy were never heard from again, and Grandma and Grandpa had a hard time explaining to Kenny and Kathy's parents what had happened. But the advance on the movie rights helped ease the pain somewhat, especially after Grandpa was signed for a cameo role.